Mom testified against me in court, trying to make me pay child support for a baby that isn't mine because family is family. But months later, I revealed my ex-wife's shocking secret. Now Mom is furious as everyone cuts her off and Dad wants a divorce. Listen closely because what I'm about to share still sets my teeth on edge. A betrayal so profound it's ripped my family in two. Can you truly grasp the agony of your own mother testifying against you in court, aligning herself with the very woman who shattered your life? All of it, a twisted quest to fulfill her own dreams, not yours. That, my friends, is my reality. And believe me, the depths of this madness run even deeper. My earliest memories are tinged with my mother's lifelong yearning for a daughter. It was her singular dream. When she and Dad discovered they were expecting their first child, me, her joy was boundless. But the instant she learned I was a boy, a palpable shift occurred. Her disappointment, raw and unconcealed, hung heavy in the air. She'd recount that story endlessly over the years, a constant reminder of her unfulfilled desire. They'd hoped for more children, especially since Mom was so set on a girl, but fate, in its cruel way, intervened. After my birth, she faced severe health complications, rendering further pregnancies impossible. I can only fathom the crushing weight of that loss, a dream irrevocably shattered, a wound she carries to this day. Her longing for a daughter only intensified, manifesting in the lavish affection she showered upon my female cousins. Gifts, attention, a redirection of all that maternal love she'd yearned to bestow. The disparity in her treatment of them versus me was undeniable. Yet for most of my life, it barely registered. I accepted it as Mom being Mom, confident in her love, largely at peace, until Sophia entered our lives. Sophia, the daughter of my mom's long-lost high school friend, became an instant fascination for my mother. After years apart, they'd reconnected, and Sophia's beauty immediately captivated Mom. Suddenly, a new obsession took hold. Sophia, she declared, was my perfect match. I was single, and Mom's previous attempts at matchmaking had been numerous and fruitless. This time, however, she was relentless. She'd badgered me endlessly, extolling Sophia's stunning looks, her wonderful nature, our supposed perfect compatibility. It became a suffocating campaign. Weeks of this constant pressure eventually wore me down. I caved, agreeing to that blind date, more to silence her than for any genuine interest. I simply craved peace. When I finally met Sophia, she was indeed strikingly beautiful, just as Mom had promised. Yet, as the evening progressed and we actually conversed, I sensed a disconcerting lack of depth. I'm drawn to people driven by purpose, by dreams. So, when I asked Sophia about her life ambitions, her answer stunned me. Her singular dream was to be a stay-at-home mom. While there's absolutely nothing inherently wrong with that aspiration, it clashed dramatically with my own trajectory. Children weren't even on my horizon, and I sought a partner with ambitions beyond just starting a family. I gently probed further. What about until you have kids? Her reply only deepened my perplexity. She simply wanted to be a stay-at-home wife. She cited her own mother, a homemaker until her father's passing, as the blueprint for a successful marriage. I respected their path, but it was miles away from what I envisioned. I craved someone with passion, with purpose, be it a career or a personal endeavor. The idea of a partner whose sole ambition, from the outset, was to be a stay-at-home spouse just didn't resonate with my values then. Compounding this, Sophia and her mother lived with an uncle who covered all their expenses, as her mother chose not to work. Returning from that first date, I felt an undeniable wave of disappointment. My expectations had been low, set mostly to appease Mom, but I knew, with certainty, that Sophia wasn't the one. Predictably, my mother was furious. Her reaction was visceral, as if I had personally wronged her by not giving Sophia a real chance. She insisted I hadn't truly tried to know her, that with more effort, I'd see what she saw. My decision, however, was firm. I told her, as gently yet decisively as I could, to let it go. I should have known better. My mother's tenacity, especially when she fixes her heart on someone or something, is legendary. My mother's relentless pursuit continued. Soon after, she invited me over, ostensibly for a family dinner. But upon my arrival, Sophia was already there. My mother, it turned out, had orchestrated yet another chance encounter. The moment I stepped inside, both my parents practically sprinted out the door, a conspiratorial grin plastered on their faces, calling out, "Enjoy your date." I was utterly mortified, and by Sophia's expression, she shared my humiliation. We stood in awkward silence, two strangers trapped in an unsolicited setup within my own home, no escape in sight. After a few agonizing minutes, we broke the tension with sheepish laughter, acknowledging the sheer absurdity. We sat down. Realizing our predicament, I decided to genuinely engage. Sophia openly admitted her attraction to me after our first date, confessing her confusion when I hadn't called. Gently, I explained that despite her kindness and beauty, our fundamental life aspirations seemed divergent. It was then that Sophia truly opened up. She revealed that her intention was never merely to sit around. Even without children, she devoted her days to volunteer work at a local church, caring for children, aiding those in desperate need. This revelation shifted my entire perspective. I began to see a different Sophia, a genuine warmth I hadn't initially perceived. Perhaps she wasn't driven by a traditional career, but she had undeniably found her purpose in selfless service. Such generosity of spirit, I realized, was a rare and precious quality. So, despite lingering reservations, I took a chance and asked her out again. We dated for a year, then got engaged. A significant promotion had bolstered my income, making me feel financially secure enough to support Sophia once we married. This gave me the confidence to propose, though the timing wasn't entirely my own. Both our mothers, particularly mine, exerted relentless pressure for an earlier marriage, constantly reminding us of Sophia's biological clock. Despite our lack of immediate family plans, the subtle prodding was ceaseless. When we finally announced our engagement, my mother, ever true to form, seized control of the wedding planning. She decreed a lavish ceremony, sparing no expense, insisting on covering the entire cost herself. She was determined to manifest Sophia's dream wedding, almost as if it were her own daughter's momentous occasion. It was generous, yet profoundly overwhelming. The venue, the flowers, the guest list. No detail escaped her meticulous, obsessive oversight. The ceremony itself was far grander than I'd ever imagined, but seeing Sophia's radiant happiness made every extravagance feel worthwhile. After the wedding and a beautiful honeymoon, I plunged back into my demanding career. Sophia, true to her word, moved into my home and embraced her role as a stay-at-home wife. She was an idol. She ostensibly continued her volunteer work at a local church, a pursuit she claimed to be genuinely passionate about. But it wasn't long before subtle dissonances began to emerge. Minor details about Sophia's daily routine, ones I hadn't observed before cohabitation, started to surface. A particularly glaring one was her insistence that I send money to her mother every month. Her argument, "We have more than enough, and as a good son-in-law, it's your duty." This struck me as profoundly odd. It had never been mentioned before our marriage, and I'd always assumed her uncle was managing her mother's finances. Then there was Sophia's frequent late-night arrivals. I expected a stay-at-home wife to, well, be at home more often, managing household duties like cooking and cleaning during the day. Instead, she always seemed rushed, frantically starting dinner late upon my return from work. When I inquired about her tardiness, she'd offer elaborate tales of helping others. A homeless person, a child from the community needing guidance. I didn't want to stifle her purportedly meaningful work, but there was an implicit understanding that as a homemaker, certain responsibilities fell to her. These were consistently neglected. Meals were delayed. Chores went undone. The house rarely achieved a state of cleanliness. Initially, I tried to overlook it, but a slow burn of frustration began to grow. I initiated calm conversations, discussing the delicate balance between her volunteer commitments and our household needs. Each time, she'd promised to adjust, to do better, yet the pattern remained stubbornly fixed. Late dinners, undone chores, and the same familiar excuses of her busy, altruistic days. One weekend, during Sophia's supposed volunteer shift, I decided to surprise her at the church. I pictured us spending time together, perhaps even lending a hand. But when I arrived and inquired about Sophia, the staff looked utterly bewildered. After asking several individuals, a chilling realization dawned. My wife had never volunteered there. No one knew her. A cold, heavy knot formed in my stomach. For months, she detailed her days at this very church. Now, I was hearing she hadn't even set foot inside. I desperately tried to rationalize it, a misunderstanding, a different location. That evening, when she returned, I played it cool, casually asking about her day. She launched into her usual elaborate account of strenuous work, and people helped. After she finished, I looked her dead in the eye and asked, "Which church were you at today?" Just to confirm. Without missing a beat, she repeated the exact name of the church I'd visited, the one where she was a phantom. The truth hit me with sickening force. Sophia had been lying to me, not once, but consistently, about how she spent her time. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It was deliberate deception, and I was utterly clueless as to why. What was she truly doing all day? Why the lies? I had to know. The very next morning, instead of heading to work, I parked my car several blocks from our house, far enough to remain unseen, yet close enough to observe. I was going to follow her. I yearned for her to prove me wrong, to head directly to the church, as she always claimed. I even mentally prepared my apology, ready to admit my own insecurity. But what unfolded next was something I could never have braced myself for. An hour after I had left for work, I saw her emerge from the house. She wasn't in her usual modest attire. She wore shorts and a tank top, an outfit entirely foreign to me. She got in her car, and instead of driving towards the church, she sped off in the opposite direction. My heart began to pound a frantic rhythm against my ribs. I followed, maintaining a safe distance. "It's an errand," I whispered to myself. "She's meeting someone from the church, just somewhere else." My mind raced, grasping for any logical explanation. Eventually, she pulled into a quiet residential neighborhood and parked in front of a house I didn't recognize. Not her mother's, not a cousin's. As she stepped out, a man walked out to greet her. My world imploded. I watched him embrace her. Then, to my utter horror, they kissed right there in the driveway. They held each other, their arms entwined, as if this intimate gesture was the most natural thing in their world. I couldn't breathe. It was a slow-motion car crash, and I was the one inside, helpless. My hands clenched around the steering wheel, my mind numb with shock. They walked back inside, still clinging to each other, a sickening tableau of routine intimacy. My stomach churned. This wasn't a casual fling. The comfort, the effortless intimacy between them screamed of a long-standing affair. All the doubts, the bizarre timings, the flimsy excuses, they all locked into place with a horrifying click. She had been living a double life, meticulously lying about her days, conducting this betrayal right under my unsuspecting nose. My immediate gut reaction was to call my mother, to unleash my fury, to seek solace in her voice. But a cold clarity intervened. She would instantly alert Sophia, out of anger or shock, ruining my strategic advantage. No, Sophia couldn't know I'd uncovered her deceit. Not yet. I needed irrefutable proof, concrete evidence to dismantle this marriage. I had to be calculating. For 2 agonizing weeks following that soul-crushing discovery, I poured every ounce of my energy into gathering evidence. Candid photos of them together, screenshots of their intimate text messages from her phone, meticulous records detailing the days she'd fabricated her church volunteer work. I even consulted a lawyer to safeguard my assets. Without a prenup, I refused to be financially ruined by her betrayal. The evening I finally confronted Sophia felt utterly surreal. I sat her down, my voice unervingly calm, and informed her I knew about her affair. Her initial shock morphed into futile attempts at denial, but I was prepared. One by one, I presented my irrefutable proof, the photos, the texts, the damning dates of her lies. With each piece of evidence, her denials crumbled into dust. She knew there was no talking her way out of this. Finally, begrudgingly, she confessed the man was her high school boyfriend, a fact I'd already unearthed. She tried to downplay it, calling it stupid, fooling around, nothing serious. I wasn't buying a single word. I looked her straight in the eyes and, with unwavering resolve, told her I was divorcing her. She was stunned, perhaps believing I'd eventually relent, forgive her. But as the grim reality settled in, she fought back, begging, promising to change, to work things out. Her pleas landed on deaf ears. I knew, with absolute certainty, I could never trust her again. I calmly instructed her to pack her bags and leave. To preempt any familial manipulation or manufactured narratives, I created a group chat with my parents and Sophia's mother, laying out every incriminating detail. The proof of Sophia's infidelity, the photos, the texts, everything. I wanted them to know the unvarnished truth behind my divorce, leaving no room for convenient fictions. As expected, pandemonium ensued. My mother was initially livid, outraged by Sophia's betrayal. But almost immediately, she and Sophia's mother began a relentless campaign to make me reconsider. Despite the overwhelming evidence, they pleaded with me to find it in my heart to forgive her, to give her another chance. Thankfully, my father stood firmly by my side, reassuring me I was making the right decision, that no one deserved to stay with a cheater. He told me I deserved better, unequivocally supporting my path forward. A week after I filed for divorce, Sophia and her mother ambushed me in my house. Then, Sophia dropped her bombshell. She was pregnant, claiming it was my child. My immediate reaction was outright disbelief. I flatly refused to accept paternity, given her blatant affair. Sophia's mother erupted, accusing me of ruining her daughter's life, of shirking responsibility, painting me as the heartless villain. Later, my own mother intensified her pleas. She spoke of how children change everything, how a baby could bring us closer, as if pregnancy were some magical antidote to infidelity. Sophia promised she'd never cheat again. Mom insisted, and you need to consider the child's future, not just your pride. She deftly tried to weaponize my conscience, making me feel like the antagonist for walking away from a marriage built on fractured trust. When I remained unyielding, my mother, in a desperate, shocking move, threatened to testify against me in court, particularly regarding child support. She vowed to ensure I paid for the baby, regardless of paternity. DNA doesn't matter. Family is family, she declared, implying the biological father was irrelevant. She was dead set on claiming that child as her grandchild, even if it meant betraying her own son. And she did. My mother testified against me during the divorce proceedings, a stab to my heart, a profound betrayal unlike any I'd ever experienced. My lawyer and I fought relentlessly to make the court grasp Sophia's infidelity and the strong probability that the child wasn't mine. But my mother and Sophia's mother downplayed Sophia's affair, sanitizing it into an innocent mistake, devoid of any sexual implications. They even argued that since Sophia and I had been intimate just weeks before our separation, around the time I discovered her affair, the baby had to be mine. Mercifully, the judge ruled that no final decision on child support or paternity could be made until after the baby's birth and a proper paternity test. Only then would my biological fatherhood be determined. I felt a small, hard-won victory amidst the draining emotional warfare. At least I wouldn't be coerced into supporting a child that might not be mine without definitive proof. But my mother, Sophia, and her mother were incandescent with rage. My mother confronted me afterward, her words a chilling venom. She wished I wasn't her child. She spat that if I were a real man, I would pull up my pants and accept Sophia's child as mine, regardless of any paternity test. For months afterward, my mother waged a relentless smear campaign, poisoning the minds of our family, painting me as the villain who callously destroyed my marriage over Sophia's one-time mistake. No matter how much proof I presented, no matter how many logical arguments I articulated, my mother clung to her twisted narrative, conveniently laying all blame at my feet. So, you can perhaps envision the profound sense of vindication that coursed through me when the day finally arrived for those paternity test results. Sophia had given birth to a baby girl earlier this week, and we promptly had the test done. And the result? The baby was unequivocally not mine. As anticipated, when I shared the results with Sophia, she completely shattered. She desperately pleaded with me to accept the child anyway, arguing that her friends and family would ostracize her and her daughter if I didn't step up. While a flicker of sympathy stirred for her dire predicament, it didn't alter the cold, hard facts. "I'm sorry," I told her, my voice firm, "but I cannot do that. It is no longer my responsibility." Since then, Sophia has relentlessly called and left voice messages, a desperate, continuous stream of pleas for me to reconsider. She even had the audacity to argue that since I probably wouldn't have children anytime soon, I should simply think of this baby as mine, despite her infidelity. She then revealed the true depths of her deception. The man she was having an affair with, her high school sweetheart, had flat out refused to marry her. He was never ready to settle down, she confessed, which was why she had married me in the first place. It became starkly clear she intended to use me as a financial conduit while continuing her clandestine affair. Honestly, I hope she pursues him for child support, but at this point, my concern is utterly extinguished. Taking the advice of trusted friends, I made a public Facebook post, unequivocally announcing that I am not the father of Sophia's child. I was utterly exhausted by my mother's unwavering support for Sophia after such egregious cheating, and yes, I wanted to humiliate her, just as she had relentlessly humiliated me for months. And what followed? The fallout was immediate. After my post, which exposed my mother's misguided allegiance, she called me, her voice trembling with fury. People had begun to turn on her. She accused me of betrayal, an accusation so profoundly ironic it almost made me laugh, considering she was the one who had stabbed me in the back by testifying in court and actively trying to force me into child support. Many of my mother's friends and relatives, who had initially bought into her narrative, now saw the truth, with the paternity test results acting as a stark, undeniable confirmation of her error regarding Sophia. They started calling her out in the comments of my post, and even her face, telling her, in no uncertain terms, that she needed to be a better parent to me, and that I was the true victim in this sordid affair. After my mother's furious call, she and Dad erupted into a colossal fight. He was utterly fed up with her incessant bullying, her relentless attempts to force me into accepting Sophia's child, even though it wasn't mine. He issued an ultimatum. Either she drop her delusional crusade, or he would leave. It has now been 5 months since my last update. My parents decided to separate last month. My mother has remained utterly unyielding, refusing to alter her stance. She's even started referring to herself as grandma to Sophia's baby, providing Sophia with monthly financial aid and volunteering for babysitting duties. It seems she's finally living out her twisted dream of having a long-lost daughter, precisely as she always yearned. My father, however, finds this behavior increasingly intolerable, deeming it borderline inappropriate. He wants absolutely no part in Sophia's life or her child's. This divergence has led to countless, bitter arguments, with my mother steadfastly refusing to acknowledge her own culpability. Consequently, my dad has moved out and is currently staying with me. It absolutely shatters my heart that my mother would choose to prioritize the child of my cheating ex-wife over her own flesh and blood, over her own fracturing family. My dad, having reached his breaking point, will be consulting a lawyer this week to initiate divorce proceedings. One unholy mess, isn't it? I still wrestle with the sheer disbelief that my own mother could inflict such profound wounds. So, I ask you, what would you have done in my position? Have you ever stared into the face of such profound betrayal from someone you loved unconditionally? Share your thoughts. I truly need to hear them.